All right, just back from TD Garden where the Celtics have taken a 2-0 series lead over the Mavericks, 105-98, the final score in Game 2 of the NBA Finals. Jumping on the YouTube page here to talk about it. If you're not yet a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. We talk NBA and boxing on this page every single week. So this was not a great game. You might even call it a pretty bad game. You had two teams that shot sub 26% from three-point range. You had a Mavericks team that committed 15 turnovers. You had Jason Tatum in Boston going 6 of 22 from the floor. Just a lot of misses in this game. And probably a missed opportunity for the Dallas Mavericks to steal a game in Boston and even this series. So I want to start with the good. And the good in this game is almost entirely Jrue Holiday, who right now is your front runner for Finals MVP. He's already had two really good defensive games, played great in both these games against Kyrie Irving. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But game two, he busted out offensively. 26 points, 11 rebounds, 11 of 14 of the floor. And a lot of those shots were shots that came right in the paint from Jrue Holiday, just hanging around the lane, waiting for extra passes, waiting for putback attempts. He just kind of had a great feel for the game in this game, too. Only two of his makes were three-pointers. Otherwise, he was just lingering around the rim looking for opportunities. And look, we've probably all heard a million times that Jrue Holiday was going to be the missing link for the Celtics. Jrue Holiday was going to be the guy that leads them to a championship. This is why. Because you can put him out there and he can be an A-plus defender on Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And he can have offensive moments like this where he's able to get you 20-plus points. He's able to pull down 11 rebounds, 3 assists as well. That's not bad either. But it was his teammates that did a lot of the facilitating, and Jrue was just kind of there cleaning up and taking advantage of those opportunities. So an amazing game by Jrue Holiday. That's number one. It's going to be a lot of focus this week on Jason Tatum, who had his second straight poor shooting night. 6 of 16 for Tatum in game 1, 6 of 22 in game 2, just 1 of 7 from three-point range. He couldn't buy a bucket. He was really struggling, especially in the first half. What I liked about Tatum's game, though, is that he didn't allow his bad shooting to take him out of the game entirely. Now, the Mavericks, pretty much their entire focus of this series has been making Jason Tatum inefficient, making him more liability than asset. It started in game 1 where they tilted the entire balance of the floor. All their defensive philosophy or strategies was about loading up on Jason Tatum in game 1. In between the games, we all know what happened. Jason Kidd saying Jaylen Brown is the best player in the Celtics. We all know that was a strategy to get into the head of Jason Tatum and to make him overextend himself, try to do too much out there on the floor. And then in game 2, the biggest thing I noticed right off the bat was that Dallas went Tatum hunting on defense. They were putting him in actions all night long and having Luka attack him, having Kyrie attack him. When he was being defended in the post by Daniel Gafford, they threw the ball to him down there. So they were determined to try to wear Tatum down in this game too. And how Tatum responded was, look, he had the 18 points. That's fine. The efficiency numbers weren't great. But he had 12 assists in this game. He had 9 rebounds in this game. He had a steal in this game. He kept himself involved in the game even when his shot wasn't falling. And I think that is a testament to just how good a player Jason Tatum is. I think a few years ago, even 2 years ago, in the NBA Finals against Golden State, if Tatum's shot wasn't going, I don't think he would have been able to find a way to contribute to these games. In this game, he did. That 12 assists is a great number. That's 5 more assists than anyone else had on that Celtics roster. So great work by Jason Tatum to find a way to impact the game even when his shot wasn't falling. On the Dallas side, my biggest takeaway is that after 2 games, Luka is just not getting any help. This was a much better game game 2 for Luka Doncic. He had 32 points. He went over 30 in game 1 as well. But he had 11 rebounds, and he had 11 assists in this one. Remember, it was 1 assist in game 1. He had 10 more of them in game 2, and he probably could have had a few more if some of his guys had been able to knock down shots. And that's really a big factor in this series. The guys around Luka can't make open shots. And look, I'm talking about PJ Washington, who was 1 of 5 from three-point range. I'm talking about Derrick Jones Jr., who was 0 of 3. I'm talking about Josh Green, who was 0 of 3. Probably most notably, I'm talking about Kyrie Irving, who had his second straight bad offensive game in a row. 0 of 3 from three-point range, 7 of 18 overall, had just 16 points. It's not cracked 20 in either of the first 2 games of this series. Now, I don't think it has anything to do with the Boston crowd. I mean, the crowd was after him a little bit in game 2, but it didn't have the kind of fervor. It didn't have the kind of energy that maybe he expected or most people expected coming into this series. I just think it's a bad matchup for him right now. I think the Celtics have size, strength, and skill defensively that they can throw at him in waves. It starts with Holiday, but it continues with Derek White. Jaylen Brown got some reps on Kyrie as well. These are great defensive players, and Kyrie's having a really hard time figuring them out, a really hard time being efficient in these games. And I promise you, the Mavericks are not going to win one single game if it's just the Luka Doncic show. I mean, look, Boston has had 2 bad offensive games from its superstar and Jason Tatum, and they've won both of these games. Boston can get away with 1 or 2 guys falling off. The Mavericks can't. They need Kyrie to put up 25, 30 points and do it in an efficient way. Go back to the Western Conference Finals. He shot almost 50% from the floor. He shot about 38% from three-point range. Those are the kind of numbers the Mavericks need from Kyrie Irving. They need some other stuff as well. They need guys like Washington Jones. When you're open, make the shots. They need to find a way to get more lobs to Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. Derek Lively had 2 points. Derek Lively has been a non-factor in this series up until this point. Non-factor, complete non-factor. They got to get him more involved. But more importantly, Kyrie, the shooters, they have got to start making some shots and give Luka some help. Luka had 8 turnovers in this game. That's a bad number, but with all the offensive burden that he's taking on, it's not understandable, but you can see how he can get there to those 8 turnovers. Now, what are the questions going into game 3? The biggest one to me is the health of Kristaps Porzingis. If you watched the fourth quarter of this game, right around the midway point, Kristaps got tangled up going for trying to defend a play by a shot at the rim by PJ Washington. He left the game with what looked like a left calf strain. Now, it's the right calf that caused him to miss 38 days going into this series. So that's good news for Boston that it's not the same calf injury. But the fact that it is a calf injury, and it's a lower leg injury, that's something you got to keep an eye on. Because I watched Porzingis when he came back into the game after that injury. He had a couple good moments, but he was clearly laboring going up and down the floor, and he looked more inclined to hang out around the three-point line rather than move around and make plays in the paint. So, look, he says, no issue, I'll be fine. Joe Mazzulla says, no issue, I'll be fine. But, look, he's got a history now of lower leg injuries, and you can never be too sure. And I think him going out, even with the Celtics up 2-0, it makes them vulnerable because Porzingis is a huge part of what this team does, especially on the defensive end of the floor. And then with Dallas, like, does home cooking matter, right? Does going back home, home crowd, your environment, is that going to make a noticeable difference? Remember, Boston, they're a better road team than they are at home. They've won every road game of these playoffs. And they've won, like, all their road games since May, but sometime they've just been a great road team all season long and certainly all postseason long. So I don't know. I don't know if going home is going to solve Dallas's problems. Maybe some of their role players will play better. They certainly need that. Maxi Kleber has been useless in this series. 0 of 4 from the field, 0 of 2 from three-point range. I don't know how he finished +1 and +- That's a weird stat. Derek Lively -15. I told you, Derek Lively has not been good in this series. But maybe their role players play better, but I think Boston's role players are going to play better too. I don't think Sam Hauser is going to go 0 for 5 in the next game. And I think Tatum has at least one breakout game left in him. So I think Dallas is in some trouble here. The Porzingis injury certainly bears watching, but this was the game the Mavericks needed to grab. Whenever Boston struggles, and they do like once every 6 weeks, they have a really bad game where they shoot the three ball really poorly. Those are the types of games they lose. The fact they came away from this game with a win, I'm not sure they're going to play that badly again. I'm not sure they're going to shoot that badly again. So, good win for Boston. They take that 2-0 series lead. And for Dallas going home, they're going to spend the next couple of days wondering, could we have done more? Could we have gotten a few more stops, made a few more shots, not turn the ball over quite so much? Did we blow our opportunity to grab a win and get back in this series, which is looking more and more difficult for them to win by the game?